that story and bring you to the big health focus for us here at 5 Live. Now today, when we speak about health issues, one of the biggest health concerns of our times is perhaps, without a doubt, obesity. Approximately 40.3% of adults in India are clinically obese. This is a disease that sees no gender divide, no age divide either. Today, obesity and its related issues impact one and all, and even the Prime Minister made it a point to speak about it from the ramparts of Red Fort.
हमारे देश के हर परिवार को चिंता करनी चाहिए। मोटापा हमारे देश के लिए बहुत बड़ा संकट बनता जा रहा है। आने वाले वर्षों में लोग, जो पंडित लोग हैं, वो कहते हैं, जो जानकार लोग कहते हैं, हर तीसरे व्यक्ति में एक व्यक्ति मोटापे का शिकार होगा। हमें मोटापे से बचना है, ओबेसिटी से बचना है, और इसलिए मैंने बाकी सब करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन एक छोटा सा सुझाव दिया था कि परिवार तय करे कि जब खाने का तेल घर में आएगा 10% कम ही आएगा और 10% कम ही उपयोग करेंगे, और हम ओबेसिटी के खिलाफ लड़ाई को जीतने की दिशा में हम अपना योगदान देंगे।
All right, so obesity is a real problem, but the good news is there is now a real solution. The biggest pharma revolution of our times, anti-obesity drugs are here. But the question is, who is it for? We so casually say things like, we are fat. But did you know that there are different kinds of fat? Are you clearly clinically fat, or is it just in your head? Perhaps beauty magazines making you feel that way? And importantly, can your kind of fat actually be treated by weight loss drugs? Here's an explainer to give you all the answers. By now, we all know how revolutionary GLP-1 drugs are. What they do, how they help, is not an unknown secret. But what's perhaps most important, and where all the debate lies, is who is it for? Can it work for you? How will it impact your body cells? And critically, are you really that fat that you need weight loss drugs? Well, I have often asked myself these questions, so after speaking with some of India's finest doctors, this is what we found. The first thing to remember, do not jump in to calculate your body mass index or BMI. Its definition is being challenged and questioned as a sole parameter of obesity. Someone, especially Indian body type, with high BMI may have a lot of bone and muscle mass. Someone with moderately high or even normal range BMI may have body fat percentage, meaning BMI does not conclusively define a fatty body. So, what does, you ask? Let's take you to point number 2. A good way to determine fatness, especially in the Indian context, is to calculate the waist to hip ratio. First, measure the waist circumference and position it right above your belly button. Then measure the hip circumference done at the widest part around your hip. Now divide the waist with the hip to get what will be your waist to hip ratio. For South Asian men, it should be sort of under 0.9, and for South Asian women, it should be under 0.8. Let's move on to point number 3, which is the body fat percentage. Now, this is the most clinical way to determine fatness. The Endocrine Society of India has suggested that it should be 25% for men and 30% for women. The catch here, however, is that it's difficult to ascertain your body fat percentage without professional help. But there are several methods to calculate that. For example, there is a DEXA scan. Ask your doctors about it. It's the most accurate clinical method. What the DEXA scan does is uses low-level X-ray to differentiate bone, muscle and fat, typically done in a medical or research setting. There is also the skin fold test. Now, this involves pinching the skin at various locations to measure fat thickness using clappers. Now, this requires skin fold clappers and the experience for consistently and accurately calculated, again to be done under supervision. Let's move on to point number 4, the skinny fat. The skinny fat phenomena. Now, the person with BMI 26 may not appear overweight, but could have body fat as high as 38% concentrated around their belly. BMI works on the assumption that all fat is the same, yet the fat around the arms, around your thighs and arms are not as harmful. Many Indians tend to have skinny fat, that means having thin arms and legs but a big belly, and that is dangerous. Talking about that, let's move on to the next one, which is the visceral fat, the hidden risk everybody warns against. Now, roughly speaking, 90% of the fat in a person is what can be seen on the outside. The remaining 10% is inside the abdomen, called the visceral fat, as it surrounds the internal or the visceral organs, such as liver, kidney. It's the fat you cannot pinch. It's the visceral fat that doctors need to target in the clinic. Visceral or central fat produces toxins, the bad hormones that increase insulin resistance and also suppress insulin secretion. For example, you may not have high BMI, you may not even look overweight, but you might still have high levels of fat around your organs, and that can be extremely dangerous. It also means that you're extremely unfit. And if such a person gets diabetes, you could benefit greatly from GLP-1 drugs. So those are the things to remember. But also importantly, do take into note that India has now entered the big league weight loss drugs market. That means drugs like Banjaro, Vigovi are out. The demand is real. The drug sales are surging and generics are already on the horizon. But these drugs are not cosmetic solutions. They are evidence-based medical tools designed to tackle chronic metabolic conditions such as obesity, diabetes, particularly when diet and exercise by themselves fall short. Now, these are general guidelines, remember, but before starting your weight loss drugs and medication, do ask yourself these 5 questions that we said, but also the following to your doctor. You must consult an endocrinologist for obesity specialty. Also determine your body type, amount of body fat, not just your weight or BMI. Discuss your lifestyle, your dietary habits, and your metabolic history with your doctor. Take informed decision and make it the right choice. All right, so that's everything you need to know. But since we got all that information, I had to bring on the program somebody who's perhaps the last word when it comes to weight loss medication in the country. Dr. Amrish Mittal is here with us in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us, Doc. A lot of information that you saw there in the explainer actually comes out from his book that he has written, which is very well researched, the Indian context of GLP-1 drugs. Before I start, Dr. Mittal, can I ask you number 1 question?
Yes.
How many fit, clinically not obese or fat people are walking into your clinics today and asking for weight loss drugs?
That's a great question to start off, Sonal. There are 2 aspects to this. We certainly have people who don't fit the category, for using drugs, who are requesting for these drugs, who are not in the BMI zone or in an unhealthy zone where they require them, but they want to do it purely for cosmetic reasons, a couple of kilos here and there for a wedding.
There's a beach wedding coming up, or there's a photo shoot and I need to look perfect.
Yes. So those, definitely, those are there. But it's very interesting, on the same day, in the same clinic, we see people on the other side. People who have a BMI of 33, maybe they are 95, 100 kilograms. But I don't want to lose weight. My diabetes is controlled, everything is okay. And the person says, but I've always been like this. And the partner will say, of course, he's always been. Doctor, weight is not a concern for us. So it's very interesting how the human mind and perception is. On the same day, we see people who are at 26 BMI or even 25 BMI wanting to become slimmer. A 52 kilogram lady who wants to become 48. And then we have these people who are like clearly overweight and suffering because of that. But because the numbers look okay, the sugars look okay, blood pressure looks okay, they say, we don't want to lose weight. Is it really important?
खाते पीते घर के लगते
खाते पीते घर के लगते
हम ऐसे ही हैं.
But especially the partner also says, but he's always been like this. I said, what was he when you got married? No, that is different, of course. Then he was very different.
Got it. So it's a double whammy then.
Yes.
There are those who are going after this miracle drug, as many are calling it, who don't need it. But those perhaps who this is meant for are staying away. what can be done then to ensure that the right kind of people come in? I ask this question because now these drugs are becoming way more cheaper. They currently cost about 30,000 a month. In just about a year's time, by 26, once the generics sort of come in and pills sort of come in, they will come down to just about 3,000 a month. When we look at a scenario like that, how will you ensure that the right usage actually happens?
I think that's important. Firstly, the cost is already down because they're both marketed here. So it's still expensive, of course, but they are between 13 and 20,000 a month, typically. So that's one. They're not 30 anymore. So that is one. The second is that this is exactly what we're supposed to do, provide the right information to people. Let people know that if you're overweight, if you're in the obese zone, especially if you have comorbidities like diabetes or heart disease or even kidney disease, you really do need to lose weight because that really matters in your long-term outcomes. So let me give you an example. If you lose weight, you're reducing your risk of developing diabetes. If you have diabetes, you're improving your diabetes control. And if you're not well controlled, you get better control, and you certainly reduce your risk of complications because of diabetes. So those are the benefits. The challenge is, as you said, that people who don't really require the medication are asking for it, and there it requires regulation. It requires the right kind of doctors, and I'm so glad you said that you should go to a specialist or an endocrinologist because, you know, truly speaking, you need someone who can advise you on the pros and cons properly and not just prescribe the drug to please you. I think that's also very important. So like with every drug, when used for the right person, they are exceedingly useful. They're exceedingly helpful. But if they are used for the wrong person, they can have side effects. And one quick line I'll add here, the problem is that if everyone is using them, you know, those who don't need them, where they're not indicated, if they are using them and then they get side effects, the drug gets a bad name. And it's publicized in the media, and then those who need them, they stay away. Oh, I don't want to take that drug because I've heard it does this and that. That is the challenge.
I'm so glad you brought in the issue of side effects because every day without a fail, I see posts by nutritionists these days, people who are advocates of good gut health, talking about what long-term impact of these weight loss drugs, GLP-1 drugs can have on your liver, on your kidney. On the same day, I also see a lot of reports on the miracles this drug can really do. So one is really conflicted on this. What is the right approach to take on these drugs?
Well, that's the reason for writing this book. The reason is that there is so much misinformation out there, both ways, that we need to be very careful. These drugs are undoubtedly a huge scientific advance. No one can take that away. They have changed the way we look at weight, we look at diabetes, we look at heart disease, we look at kidney complications and even liver. So these drugs are actually very beneficial to our organs. I mean, clearly the risk of heart attacks, for example, or cardiovascular events comes down by more than 20%. The risk of fatty liver, I mean, you just squeeze out the fat from the liver. You know, these drugs do that. Progression of kidney disease. So there are huge benefits. But there are possible side effects. There is no drug developed ever that doesn't have side effects. Even the daily aspirin that you take could have potential side effects. But those side effects have to be monitored. You have to be prepared. One are the common daily side effects, which are the gastrointestinal side effects. Some reflux, some nausea. Some people hate it. Some people don't even notice it. Even vomiting sometimes. Some people get constipation and diarrhea. But the good part is these are mostly in the initial stages and they wane off. Over a few weeks, they gradually decline.
So I think the key here is that this is not a drug that can be self-prescribed. The key here is you need to know when to start, how much to have, and importantly, when to stop. And if those are not followed, you could go on the wrong path. So extremely important that if you are even considering, first go back and save the video, understand if you're fat or not, and only then get on this, and then go meet an endocrinologist and let them take the informed choice on whether or not they are meant for you. So much more can be spoken about this, and Dr. Amrish Mittal's book is also out. You can also read that out to get more information. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us and taking us through all those lovely details.